Hello, good morning. So I'm gonna speak about the IMDb movie EDA analysis that I have done in this particular project. So basically, we are gonna do about the EDA exploration about the movies, and these are the some of the objectives that I'm gonna speak about in this particular session. So what I'm gonna see is here, what we are gonna see here is analyze the 1,000 movies from the IMDb website for over a period of 10 years, and based on that data we have to identify, or we have identified the directors with the highest number of votes, top movies with respect to genres, directors, revenues, and what is the impact of revenue based on votes and metascores, and some of the most popular movies with respect to critics and public, and how they basically vary, and directors with the highest number of films in a period of 10 years. So let's get started and see what does the various data fields mean. So these are the various data fields that we have in our data set: rank, title, genre, description, and the various other information related to a movie. So the one difference that I would like to maybe highlight here is the difference between the votes and the metascore. So votes are something that's been given by the general audience or a public, whereas a metascore has been given by a critics. So critics is like they can give you a metascore in the range of 0 to 100, 100 being the highest. Highest metascore basically means that it's a positive review for a given movie. With that said, I'll just give a brief about what is the decisions that's been undertaken in order to handle the missing values. So we could see that around 12.8% and 6.4% of the data that were missing in revenues and the metascores respectively, and we have used the strategy of filling those with the mean values of that particular column. Right. So with that, let's get started on to the first analysis, which is basically the director with the highest number of votes. As we could see in our graph, or the pie chart, we could see the Christopher Nolan as being the best director with the highest number of votes, which is getting to the span of 6.5 million number of votes in the past 10 years. If we basically categorically see what is the list of genres about these movies that Christopher Nolan has been directed, so it basically falls into three types of genres, being sci-fi, action, and drama. So most of his, is one of the most successful top-rated film would be The Dark Knight. I think which most of us know, which is a big super hit, having a highest rating in the whole IMDb data set for the last 10 years. That's basically with the highest rating of 9.0 and the box office collection of $533 million. So with that, I think from this analysis, we could see that Christopher Nolan is the best director so far in among this particular data set. So the next analysis that we took is the top movies with the highest revenue. So even though we could see in our previous analysis that Christopher Nolan was the best director, with The Dark Knight being the best movie or the high-rated movie, but that's not the movie which has been generated the highest revenue as per this data set. So it's basically the Star Wars, the Force Awakens is the one which has generated a hoping revenue of around $936 million. So with that's being the best or the highest movie with respect to the revenues in the top 10 years. So one quick analysis we did, or we wanted to figure out why that was the case, because even though The Dark Knight being the top rated movie was not the one which could take the highest in terms of revenue. So I think one thing we have to observe is the year of the movie that was released. So this was released in 2008 versus what we could see the Star Wars being released in 2015. One reason that we can think of is basically the year of release, where I think 2015 there was a more traction compared to that of what it was in 2008. So so that's basically a small gist about this analysis. Coming to the third analysis, we wanted to see which are the genre of movies which has been high in terms of the revenue collections, right? So if you could see this particular bar chart, or sorry, this particular bar chart, so we could see that animation is the movie which has been top rated, or it's the movie with highest revenue, and compared to that of the action genre, adventure genre, mystery, and biography. So it's been quite interesting to see that animation sort of a movies has been having a more traction nowadays. Maybe because of kids. I think kids love animated movies. It's not only about kids. I think a lot of elder people or mid-aged people like a lot of animated movies, right? With that, I'll just jump to the next set of analysis that we did is the top 5 directors, which is basically again the number of votes. So when I say votes, it's basically the public audience which has been who has given the votes, and with that, if we could see the average number of votes that has been taken, and based on that, if we could see the top 5 directors, it's been like this: Christopher Nolan, James Cameron, Joss Whedon, Quentin Tarantino, and then Tim Miller. These are the top 5 directors with the average number of votes being the highest, right? So let's get into the next set of analysis, where I've clubbed 2 of our analysis to see the impact of revenue based on the votes. So as I clearly demarcated the difference between the votes and meta scores, as votes is basically coming from the general public, whereas the meta scores is basically coming out from critic. It was quite interesting to see that the revenues is not really correlated well with meta scores compared to that of oats. So I don't say it's been one of the strongest correlated, but comparative to the meta scores, I see that revenues has been strongly correlating with oats compared to that of the meta scores. Because as we could see that the scatter plot is not giving us enough information. It's not about enough information, but it's clearly telling us, in fact, that revenues are not being high with the highest with the meta scores being or growing, right? So that's basically giving us this correlation map that these two are not highly correlated compared to what it is with respect to revenues of revenue generation with respect to oats. So let's get into the next analysis. So in this analysis, we are basically going to categorize the popular movies with respect to critics and public. Again, as I said, critics is something we get to know from the meta scores, whereas the public voting we get to know from the votes. So here we could see somewhat a different contrast of a thing. Maybe I don't know if it's an outlier, but as per this particular data set, we could see that meta score being the highest of 100 for Bollywood movie, right? So this has been what we could conclude is, as per critics, this is the best movie they have seen so far in the last 10 years, with the highest or the best meta score being 100. Whereas when it comes to the popular movies, when it with respect to the public voting, then that is where we could see that The Dark Knight, which has been directed by Christopher Nolan, released in 2008, as the one which has the highest public traction with around 1.7 million of votes, 7.9 million of average votes, I could say. Right. So with respect to rating, public rating, we could see these are the top 5 movies in the order of votes, magnitude of votes. So The Dark Knight being the top, followed by Inception, Dangle, Interstellar, and then we have Kim No Nawa, right? So these are the top movies that we could see out of this list. Coming to the next set of analysis that we have done is basically the director with the highest number of films in a period of 10 years. So we could see that interestingly, it was Ridley Scott, who is a director with the highest number of around 8 films in a span of 10 years, right? So his movie ratings ranges somewhere between 5.3 to the 8.0, higher being the better. The Martian is the movie with the highest rating on the Metascore, right, for Ridley Scott personally, and which bagged around $228.43 million in a box office collection. So this was quite interesting, right? So because if we could see that, it doesn't mean that the directors with the highest votes, or the director with the most traction, or director with the best rating like Christopher Nolan, was not these directors which who was directing more number of movies. I think I don't want to get to the quality of it, but it's basically we could see that there's no strong correlation that if the director is pretty popular, then doesn't mean that he's the one with the highest number of movies directed, right? So that was our main intention, to get this to this particular analysis and see how we can do a correlation between the directors, the popularity of the directors, and the number of films that they are directing. So I think with this, we are concluding our set of analysis that we have done. So I hope it was useful in order to get or draw some of the conclusions from the IMDb movies that we have got. Thank you.